In Nebraska, beneath the endless prairie sky and rolling farmland, there are stories that refuse to die. From mysterious lake monsters to phantom ships, we're bringing 16 haunting legends back to life. Number 1, the Alkali Lake Monster. Deep in the alkaline waters of western Nebraska lies a creature that has haunted local fishermen for generations. The Alkali Lake Monster. This serpentine beast is said to emerge from the murky depths when the moon is dark, its massive body creating ripples that spread across the entire lake. Witnesses describe a creature 40 feet long with dark, glistening skin and eyes that glow like amber in the moonlight. Unlike other lake monsters, this one seems drawn to the mineral-rich waters, feeding on the strange life forms that thrive in the salty environment. Ranchers have found cattle bones picked clean along the shoreline, and more than one fishing boat has returned with unexplained gouges in its hull. The legend began with Native American tribes who warned early settlers never to camp too close to the water's edge. They spoke of a spirit serpent that guarded the sacred waters, punishing those who showed disrespect. Even today, locals give the lake a wide berth after sunset, and those brave enough to fish there never go alone. Some say the creature is a remnant from prehistoric times, trapped in the mineral-rich waters that preserve more than just memories. Whether it's real or imagination, the Alkali Lake Monster continues to stir the waters of Nebraska folklore. Number 2, Seven Sisters Road. On a lonely stretch of highway in Nebraska City stands Seven Sisters Road, where tragedy has left an eternal mark. The legend tells of 7 sisters who died in a horrific car accident on this very stretch of pavement. Some say they were racing to reach their dying father. Others claim they were fleeing an abusive home. But everyone agrees on what happened next. Their car veered off the road on a foggy night, crashing into the deep ravine below. All 7 sisters perished, their dreams and hopes buried with them in the Nebraska soil. But death, it seems, was not the end of their story. Drivers on Seven Sisters Road report seeing 7 glowing figures walking along the roadside, always in a line, always searching. Their faces are pale and sorrowful, and they seem to be looking for something they'll never find. Cars passing by experience sudden temperature drops, radios fill with static, and engines mysteriously stall. The most chilling encounters happen on foggy nights, just like the one that took their lives. Motorists have seen the sisters standing in the middle of the road, forcing them to swerve. But when they look back, the road is always empty. Some believe the sisters are trying to prevent others from suffering their fate. Others think they're simply lost, forever searching for the way home they never found. Number 3, Blackbird Hill Ghost. High above the Missouri River, on a bluff known as Blackbird Hill, stands the eternal figure of a woman in white. This is the ghost of a Native American woman whose tears have watered the earth for over 2 centuries. Her story is one of love, loss, and a grief so profound it transcends death itself. According to legend, she was the daughter of Chief Blackbird, and she fell in love with a white trader who promised to return for her. She waited on the hill day after day, watching the river for his boat. Seasons changed, years passed, but he never came. Some say he was killed by rival traders. Others believe he simply chose another life. Either way, her heart couldn't bear the abandonment. She threw herself from the cliff, choosing death over a life without love. But her spirit remained, forever watching the river below. Visitors to Blackbird Hill report seeing a woman in traditional native dress standing at the edge of the bluff, her long hair flowing in the wind. She never acknowledges their presence, always gazing toward the water with an expression of infinite sadness. On quiet evenings, people claim to hear her weeping, a sound that seems to come from the earth itself. The wind carries her sorrow across the prairie, and even the bravest visitors feel compelled to leave offerings of wildflowers at the spot where she stands. Her vigil continues, a reminder that some loves are too powerful for death to break. Number 4. Antelope Park Hauntings. In the heart of Lincoln sits Antelope Park, a peaceful green space by day that transforms into something far more mysterious after dark. This urban oasis has been the center of ghostly encounters for decades, with spirits that seem drawn to its quiet paths and shadowy groves. The most frequently reported ghost is that of a young woman in a Victorian dress who walks the park's winding trails. She appears most often near the small lake, always alone, always silent. Joggers and dog walkers have tried to approach her, only to watch her fade into the mist. Some believe she's the spirit of a woman who drowned in the lake decades ago. Others think she's searching for a lost love who promised to meet her there. But she's not alone. Park maintenance workers have reported tools moving by themselves and the sound of children's laughter echoing from empty playgrounds. Late-night visitors describe cold spots that appear suddenly, even on warm summer evenings. Security cameras have captured unexplained lights floating between the trees and shadows that move independently of any earthly form. The park's rose garden is particularly active, with the scent of flowers growing stronger when no blooms are present. Couples walking there have felt invisible hands guiding them together, as if the spirits approve of young love. Whether these ghosts are protective or simply drawn to the living world, Antelope Park remains a place where the boundary between life and death grows thin. Number 5. The Spook Light of Nebraska City. Along the abandoned railroad tracks outside Nebraska City, mysterious phenomenon has puzzled witnesses for over a century. The spook light, as locals call it, appears as glowing orbs that dance along the railway, defying explanation and terrifying anyone brave enough to investigate. The lights appear without warning, usually late at night when the world is quiet and still. They start as pinpoints of blue or white light, growing larger and brighter as they move along the tracks. Sometimes there's just one. Other times, dozens of orbs weave between the railroad ties like ghostly lanterns carried by invisible hands. The legend began with railroad workers who reported seeing the lights during the early 1900s. They claimed the orbs were the spirits of workers killed in rail accidents, forever walking their beat. Train engineers would slow their locomotives when they saw the lights, fearing collision with something that wasn't entirely there. Modern investigators have tried to debunk the phenomenon, suggesting everything from swamp gas to car headlights reflecting off metal. But the lights appear even when no cars are near, and they move with an intelligence that natural phenomena can't explain. They seem to respond to human presence, growing brighter when approached, then vanishing the moment someone gets too close. Whether they're spirits, natural anomalies, or something in between, the spook lights of Nebraska City continue to illuminate the darkness with their otherworldly glow. Number 6. The Ghosts of Fort Robinson. In the northwestern corner of Nebraska stands Fort Robinson, a military post with a history steeped in conflict and tragedy. Built in 1874, this fortress witnessed some of the most difficult chapters in American history, and those echoes still resonate through its weathered buildings. The fort was the site of Chief Crazy Horse's death in 1877, and many believe his spirit, along with those of other Native Americans and soldiers, never left. Visitors report seeing figures in military uniforms patrolling the grounds at dawn, their footsteps echoing on wooden boardwalks. The most commonly cited ghost is that of a cavalry officer who appears in the old barracks, always checking on his men who are no longer there. The guardhouse, where Crazy Horse spent his final moments, is particularly active. Park rangers have reported doors opening and closing by themselves, sudden temperature drops, and the sound of muffled voices speaking in languages they don't recognize. Some visitors have felt an overwhelming sadness wash over them when entering certain buildings, as if the very walls hold the emotions of those who suffered there. Late at night, people claim to hear the sound of horses' hooves on the parade ground and bugle calls echoing across the empty fort. These ghostly reveilles seem to call spirits to attention, maintaining military discipline even in death. The ghosts of Fort Robinson serve as reminders that some duties transcend the grave and some wounds take more than time to heal. Number 7. The Witch of Hmel Park. In the northern part of Omaha lies Hmel Park, a seemingly innocent green space with a reputation that keeps many visitors away after dark. According to local legend, the park is cursed by the spirit of a witch who once called these woods home, and her malevolent presence still haunts anyone who dares to trespass. The legend tells of an old woman who lived as a hermit in the wooded area before it became a park. She was feared by local children and avoided by adults who whispered that she practiced dark magic. When she died alone in her cabin, strange things began happening in the woods. Trees would move without wind, animals would flee the area, and an oppressive feeling of being watched settled over the land. Visitors to Hmel Park report unexplained phenomena that range from unsettling to terrifying. Compasses spin wildly, electronic devices malfunction, and photographs often show strange shadows or lights that weren't visible to the naked eye. Some people have reported feeling invisible hands pushing them away from certain areas, as if the witch's spirit is protecting her territory. The most chilling encounters happen near what locals call the witch's tree, an ancient oak that stands apart from the others. Its branches seem to reach out like gnarled fingers, and many visitors report hearing whispered threats when they approach. Whether real or imagined, the Witch of Hmel Park has claimed her domain, warning the living to stay away from her eternal resting place. Number 8. The Nebraska Bigfoot. Deep in the forests of eastern Nebraska, where the Plat River winds through dense woodlands, there are stories of a creature that walks the line between man and beast. The Nebraska Bigfoot, also known as the Wild Man, has been spotted by hunters, hikers, and farmers for generations. This massive creature stands 8 feet tall, covered in dark, matted hair, with eyes that glow yellow in the darkness. Unlike his more famous cousin in the Pacific Northwest, the Nebraska Bigfoot seems more elusive, preferring to observe humans from a distance rather than confronting them directly. Witnesses describe a musky, wild scent that lingers long after the creature has vanished back into the woods. The most credible sightings come from experienced outdoorsmen who know the difference between a bear and something far more mysterious. They describe footprints 18 inches long pressed deep into the river mud, and branches broken 12 feet above the ground. Hunting dogs refuse to track the scent, whimpering and backing away from trails that lead deeper into the forest. Native American tribes in the region have stories of the forest guardian, a creature that protects the woods from those who would harm them. They speak of it with respect rather than fear, seeing it as a bridge between the human and natural worlds. Modern encounters suggest the Nebraska Bigfoot maintains this protective role, watching over the wilderness that continues to shrink around it. Whether it's a remnant species, a spiritual guardian, or something else entirely, the Nebraska Bigfoot remains one of the state's most enduring mysteries. Number 9. The Robbers' Cave Spirits. Beneath the streets of Lincoln lies a network of caves that once served as hideouts for outlaws and desperados. Robbers' Cave, as it's known today, holds more than just historical artifacts. It harbors the restless spirits of criminals who met violent ends in its shadowy depths. During the late 1800s, These caves provided perfect hiding spots for bandits, fleeing posses, or planning their next heist. The most notorious was Bloody Bill Morrison, who used the caves as his headquarters until a rival gang cornered him in the deepest chamber. The shootout that followed left 5 men dead, their bodies buried in unmarked graves within the cave walls. Today, visitors to the caves report encounters that chill them to the bone. Cold spots appear suddenly, even in summer heat. The sound of gunshots echoes through chambers where no weapons have been fired in over a century. Some tourists have seen figures in old Western clothing standing in the shadows, always just at the edge of their vision. The most disturbing reports come from the chamber where Bloody Bill died. Visitors describe feeling an overwhelming sense of violence and desperation, as if the emotions from that fatal gunfight still saturate the air. Some have fled the cave, claiming they heard voices arguing about dividing stolen gold that was never found. Tour guides speak in hushed tones about the cave's darker history, knowing that some stories are better left as whispers in the dark. The Robber's Cave spirits serve as reminders that some crimes leave stains that time cannot wash away. Number 10. The Devil's Nest. In the remote sandhills of western Nebraska lies a valley so forbidding that early settlers named it the Devil's Nest. This natural depression seems to swallow light and sound, creating an atmosphere of dread that has persisted for generations. Those who enter rarely stay long, and some claim the land itself is cursed. The valley's reputation began with Native American tribes who considered it a place of bad medicine. They warned that evil spirits dwelt in its depths, feeding on the life force of anything that lingered too long. Animals avoid the area, creating an unnatural silence that presses against visitors like a physical weight. Ranchers whose land borders the valley tell stories of cattle that wander in and emerge days later, weak and frightened, as if something had drained their vitality. Hunting parties report compasses spinning wildly and GPS devices failing completely within the valley's boundaries. Even experienced outdoorsmen find themselves lost in an area that should be easy to navigate. The most chilling accounts come from those who've spent the night in the Devil's Nest. They describe nightmares so vivid they seem real, and a feeling of malevolent presence watching from the darkness. Some report seeing lights moving through the valley at night, not natural phenomena, but something that pulses with an alien intelligence. Whether the Devil's Nest is truly cursed, or simply a place where geography creates unusual atmospheric conditions, it remains a location that most Nebraskans prefer to avoid. In a state known for its friendly openness, this valley stands as a reminder that some places are meant to remain empty. Number 11. The Haunted Opera House of David City. In the small town of David City stands a beautiful old opera house that once brought culture and entertainment to rural Nebraska. But behind the elegant facade and ornate decorations, supernatural performances continue long after the living audience has gone home. Built in 1885, the Opera House hosted traveling shows, local productions, and musical performances that brought the community together. But tragedy struck during a performance in 1923 when a fire broke out backstage, killing 3 actors who were trapped in their dressing rooms. The fire was quickly extinguished and the theater was repaired, but something remained behind. Theatergoers began reporting strange occurrences during performances. Phantom applause would echo from empty balcony seats. Props would move by themselves, and actors would glimpse figures in period costume watching from the wings. The most frequent apparition is that of a woman in a flowing gown who appears on stage during the final curtain call, bowing to an audience only she can see. The 3 actors who died in the fire are said to continue their eternal performance. Staff members arriving early for shows have heard rehearsals coming from the empty theater, complete with dialogue and musical accompaniment. When they investigate, the stage is always dark and silent, but the scent of stage makeup and old velvet lingers in the air. Modern productions at the Opera House often experience unexplained technical difficulties. Lights dim and brighten without operator control, and sound equipment picks up voices speaking lines from plays that haven't been performed in decades. The ghostly cast seems to approve of good performances and grows restless during poor ones, as if their artistic standards persist beyond death. Number 12. The Omaha Train Station Ghost. In the Grand Union Station of Omaha, where thousands of travelers once began their journeys across America, one passenger remains forever waiting for a train that will never come. The spirit of a young woman in 1940s clothing has been spotted on the platform, her suitcase in hand, her eyes scanning the tracks for transportation to a destination she'll never reach. The ghost first appeared in the 1950s, just as passenger rail travel began its decline. Station workers reported seeing her late at night, always in the same spot, always dressed as if ready for a long journey. When approached, she would turn and walk toward the tracks, vanishing just before reaching the platform's edge. Her story, pieced together from witness accounts and old records, tells of a war bride named Helen, who was traveling to meet her soldier husband, returning from overseas. A telegram arrived at the station, announcing his death in combat, but Helen was already aboard her train. When she received the news at the next stop, she returned to Omaha, heartbroken and lost. She spent her final days at the station, unable to accept that her journey had ended before it truly began. When she died alone in the station's waiting room, her spirit remained, eternally hopeful that the next train would carry her to the happiness she'd never found. Modern visitors to the renovated station report sudden cold drafts in the area where the old platform stood. Some have seen a woman's reflection in the windows, always looking outward, always waiting. Security cameras occasionally capture a figure moving through areas that should be empty, but when guards investigate, they find nothing but the echo of footsteps and the faint scent of 1940s perfume. Number 13. The Headless Horseman of Tekk. On moonless nights along the rural roads outside Tekk, drivers report encountering a figure that seems torn from the pages of Washington Irving's imagination. The Headless Horseman of Nebraska rides a massive black stallion, his cape flowing behind him as he gallops parallel to modern automobiles before vanishing into the cornfields. The legend began in the 1880s when a cattle rancher named Samuel Hayes was found dead on the road, his body intact, but his head nowhere to be found. He'd been riding home from town when something attacked him. Some blamed wolves or outlaws, but the clean cut to his neck suggested something far more deliberate and unnatural. Since then, Hayes has been seen riding the same route he traveled in life, forever searching for what was taken from him. Motorists describe a rider who keeps pace with their vehicles, matching their speed, whether they accelerate or slow down. In their headlights, they can see his broad shoulders and flowing cape, but where his head should be, there's only empty darkness. The encounters always follow the same pattern. The horseman appears suddenly from the roadside, rides alongside cars for several miles, then veers off into the fields where his hoofbeats fade into silence. Some drivers have tried to follow him, but their vehicles always get stuck in the soft earth, while the ghostly horse continues without difficulty. Local teens dare each other to drive the Tekk road at midnight, hoping to see the headless rider. Most see nothing but darkness and corn stalks, but those who do encounter him never forget the sight of a man forever incomplete, riding through eternity in search of wholeness. Number 14. The Plat River Death Ship. Along the Plat River, Nebraska's great highway of water that guided pioneers westward, there are sightings of a phantom vessel that brings omens of doom to those who witness its ghostly passage. The death ship appears as a steamboat from the 1800s, its paddle wheel churning waters too shallow for any real vessel to navigate. The legend began during the pioneer era, when riverboat travel was common along the Plat. The ship, Maiden's Dream, was carrying settlers westward when it struck a hidden sandbar during a storm. The vessel broke apart, taking dozens of passengers to watery graves. Their bodies were never recovered, swept away by the current to unknown resting places downstream. Witnesses describe seeing the phantom ship on foggy nights, its lights glowing through the mist as it makes its eternal journey upstream against the current. The boat appears solid and real until observers try to photograph it or call out to its ghostly passengers. Then it fades like morning mist, leaving only ripples on the water as evidence of its passage. River fishermen have reported the most detailed sightings. They describe passengers on the deck, dressed in pioneer clothing, staring toward the shore with expressions of infinite sadness. Some claim to hear period music drifting across the water, along with the sound of the paddle wheel turning and steam hissing from the boat's stack. The death ship is said to appear before tragedies strike the communities along the river. Its last major sighting was reported just days before the Great Flood of 2011, leading many to believe it serves as a supernatural warning system for those wise enough to heed its message. Number 15. The Ghost of Weeping Water. Near the town that bears her name, along the banks of Weeping Water Creek, walks the spirit of a Native American woman whose grief has echoed across the prairie for over 150 years. Her story is one of love, torn apart by war and a mother's sorrow that death could not silence. During the conflicts between settlers and native tribes, she was married to a warrior who fought to protect their way of life. When he left for what would be his final battle, she waited by the creek where they had first met, watching the water flow east toward lands she would never see. Word came that he had fallen, along with their young son, who had insisted on fighting beside his father. Unable to bear the loss of her entire family, she walked into the creek during the spring flooding, choosing to join them in the spirit world rather than live alone. But her anguish anchored her to the earthly realm, and she continues to walk the banks of Weeping Water Creek, forever mourning what was taken from her. Visitors to the area report seeing a woman in traditional native dress, kneeling by the water's edge, her long hair covering her face as she weeps. The sound of her crying carries on the wind, so mournful that even the strongest hearts feel compelled to shed tears of their own. She never acknowledges the living, lost in a grief too profound for human interaction. Children playing near the creek have reported seeing her reflection in the water, even when no one is standing nearby. She appears to be warning them away from the deeper pools, as if her protective instincts remained strong even in death. Local Native American communities leave offerings of sage and wildflowers near the creek, honoring a sister whose love transcended the boundaries between life and death. Number 16. The Lincoln Witches Bridge. On the outskirts of Lincoln stands an old railroad bridge that locals call the Witches Bridge, though no train has crossed it in decades. According to legend, a woman accused of witchcraft was hanged from this bridge in the early 1900s, and her spirit seeks revenge on anyone who dares to walk across her place of execution. The story tells of Martha Hendricks, an herbalist who lived alone and helped deliver babies and heal the sick with her knowledge of plants and natural remedies. When several children fell ill after she treated them, fear and superstition turned the community against her. A mob dragged her to the bridge on a stormy night, convinced she had cursed the town with her dark magic. As they placed the noose around her neck, Martha cursed all who had wronged her, promising that death would not end her power. Lightning struck the bridge as she died, leaving scorch marks that some say still appear on certain nights when storms roll across the plains. Today, the Witch's Bridge draws curiosity seekers and ghost hunters who test their courage against Martha's vengeful spirit. Those who cross the bridge report feeling invisible hands pushing them toward the edges, as if something wants to send them plummeting to the creek below. Electronic devices malfunction, photographs come out distorted, and many visitors flee before reaching the other side. The most disturbing encounters happen during thunderstorms, when Martha's spirit seems strongest. Lightning illuminates a figure hanging from the bridge's center beam, visible for split seconds before vanishing into the darkness. Her laughter echoes above the thunder, a sound of triumph and malevolence that sends even the bravest investigators running for their cars. Local authorities have considered closing the bridge to prevent accidents, but it remains accessible to those bold enough to test their courage against the Lincoln Witch's eternal anger. If you enjoyed this journey through Nebraska's haunted landscape, please click the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.